Dan Rather, CBS, with the latest war headlines. Allied commanders insisted today that their forces have not paused in their advance on Baghdad, contrary to reports from some news organizations. They say ground troops are refueling, reloading ammunition, and maneuvering for better position, while air power, quote, prepares the battlefield for the push to Baghdad. CBS's John Roberts is with the Marines north of Nasiriyah.
10 days into what was supposed to be a short, sharp war, Marines of the 2nd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion take advantage of a lull in the action. They complete needed repairs and consolidate their resources in preparation for the next big move. Though some Marine battalions are still coming under nighttime harassing fire from Iraqi units, there is now little of the intense fighting that marked the initial push north from Nasiriyah earlier this week. The admission from top generals that the original schedule for this war may be significantly delayed comes as no surprise to these Marines in the front lines.
The first couple of towns that we went through, it was some pretty scary moments.
From the moment they began meeting the first concentrated pockets of resistance in Nasiriyah, they knew the general's forecasts would not hold.
The U.S. Central Command is trying to determine if 9 Marines killed in Nasiriyah 6 days ago were killed by Iraqis or by friendly fire. Also near Nasiriyah, the remains of 4 American soldiers were found in shallow graves. It's suspected they were from the Army Maintenance Unit ambushed earlier this week. While Baghdad shook again tonight under some of the heaviest bombing of the war, the controversy raged over who caused yesterday's deadly Baghdad market attack. The Allies are falling Iraqi ordnance. In northern Iraq, Kurdish forces pursued withdrawing Iraqi soldiers amid reports that the Saddam Iraqis are preparing for a last stand at the key oil city of Kirkuk. CBS's Alan Pizzi is covering the war in the north.
Bombing raids continued along Iraqi front lines on the northern front, and Kurds continue to occupy territory on 2 fronts pushing towards Kirkuk. Kurdish forces were seen lifting landmines left by the retreating Iraqi forces. Meanwhile, villagers pelted American soldiers with stones and eggs when they went to look at a cruise missile that fell in Turkey. It was the 3rd report of a cruise missile falling in Turkey in the last week.
Several cruise missiles have flown off course and landed in Turkey and Saudi Arabia without casualties, but the U.S. has temporarily suspended Tomahawk launchings from the eastern Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Iraq today warned the Allies to expect more suicide attacks and vowed to follow the, quote, enemy into its land. This came after Iraq carried out its first such attack of the war at a checkpoint near Najaf, where a suicide bomber in a taxi killed 4 soldiers from the U.S. 3rd Infantry and himself. In far southern Iraq, Sky Television's Bill Neely tells us British Marines are still trying to find Iraqi paramilitary death squads near Qasr.
In dawn raids, they broke into dozens of houses to hunt for the soldiers, the secret police, and the henchmen of Saddam. The protests are loud, but the Marines are acting on the tip-off of informers who've told them where to find the men who never hid before. That's why these raids will go on to root out the remnants of a regime now dead, at least in this tiny slice of Iraq.
A moving ceremony outside London as the first bodies of British war dead came home. The 10 flag-draped coffins were taken off a plane one at a time. At least 23 British servicemen have been killed. At least 37 Americans have lost their lives. There are no firm figures on Iraqi casualties, military or civilian. A summary of the war in Iraq on a special edition of 48 Hours right after basketball. For now, Dan Rather, CBS News, New York.